Shattered and Earth to Pape, everyone. It's been a little while since I've done a video, and it's been a particularly special day today, and I wanted to share it with people. I've got my dog collar on today, which will become apparent why in a second. Just, I'm going cash Vicar and I, collar open, but it is there. Anyway, today was special because I've just come back from St John's in Haven Bower, which is the church where back in the early 90s I first sort of got to know the youth group up there and started maybe like the first seedlings of what would lead to me becoming a vicar, way back when. And, I've got a long history with that particular church. One story from St John's was that when Sarah and I got involved in the church, become Christians or whatever in our sort of mid-20s, St John's was the place where we went, and from there we did what we call a church plant. So we started doing some outreach work, mission work in Romford town centre, and that led to getting a shop in the high street, me doing detached youth work. I started there in about 2009 and was there till about 2016. And to begin with, when we did this kind of church plant thing, before we got the shop, we had nothing. We had no building. It was just me as the youth worker, and I was sort of working in coffee shops, and I was doing detached youth work. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm a big advocate for detached. And so, having no particular space, I gathered some local youth workers. We went out into the local parks. One of those parks is Lodge Farm Park at the top of, just outside the ring road of Romford, and met a load of young people there who we worked with for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years or whatever. And two of those young people, a young guy named Dan and a young lady called Lacey, they were, part of that group. And, we went over there every week for however many years and got to know them. Eventually we got the shop in the high street and opened up a youth club and did a church plant there. And Dan in particular was very involved in helping me to set up the youth club. He's not a Christian. He we just got on really well, and he helped me out and, helped me fix a pool table when it broke and decorate the place and all sorts of stuff. And Dan and Lacey were, just amazing young people. Anyway, fast forward like 10, 15 years, and a couple of months ago, Lacey reached out to me saying, well, Lacey and Dan, at the time they weren't a couple, but since then they got together and they've got a little baby called Darcy, and they're interested in getting her baptised. And, that again, they're not necessarily from religious backgrounds, and it just felt really special that, me as a youth worker back then, they knew I was a Christian and I was part of a church, but I didn't push that stuff. I was just there to serve young people, and just the fact that we've stayed in touch a bit, and they knew I'd got ordained, and they wanted me to do the baptism for little Darcy, which I did today at 1 o'clock this afternoon, and it was just a really special time. All of the family were there, and just a mixed concrete. As a way of talking about foundations, and baptism being about building foundations and stuff. If you've not seen my concrete mixing talk, then come along to one. I don't know, come along to a baptism or a talk I do on the estates or whatever. Anyway, so it just felt like a really full circle moment to be able to, years ago, doing detached, I was just another youth worker out and about, playing football, getting to know them, and of course they were all a bit like, oh, who's this guy initially? And we built friendships, built relationships. And then, 15, whatever, or however many years later it is, I think probably, it's got to be at least 10, I would say. But anyway, all this time later, being asked to do baptism. And, I think, if they have more kids in the future, maybe I'll get to do that and other things. So it just reminded me of why I do what I do, why I love doing detached youth work, why I love building relationships, why I always talk about the long-term nature of youth work and just being present in people's lives, not pushing our worldviews or whatever onto people, but just letting relationships build over time. And it was a real privilege to just, be part of this, this landmark, this moment in their lives. And so a bit of encouragement. Anyone out there persevering with some detached youth work in their local community, on their estate, maybe, you know, you don't get to see the outcome, the fruit of your labour in that time, but actually the work we do, the investment we make, a bit like my preach for the foundation thing this morning, is we invest in young people. We're there for them, and you never know the impact you're going to make, and the part you play in people's journeys, the part you play in their lives. So be encouraged, particularly you detached youth workers out there, and yeah, thought I'd share a good day. So bonjour everyone, be good. Make sure you put the old sun cream on, especially again if you're strawberry sunburst like I am. Make sure you're being safe in the sun. Mossy is out of here. Chateau de Neuf de Pape.